All right, welcome back, everybody, to episode number 5 of the Plumecast, my weekly solo podcast where I talk about everything that is going on in the video game industry and focus a lot on Xbox stuff, but definitely will be covering more in this episode because it's, again, another crazy week filled with rumors. We got earnings from Xbox and from PlayStation, and we got some good information about an exclusive Xbox game that I think a lot of people are excited about. So we have a lot to go over. Before I jump into it all, if you guys are new here, you enjoy this style of content, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and also follow me on Spotify. The link to the Spotify channel is in the description below, and you can either hit the link or just type in Plumecast on Spotify and it will pop up. I do this solo podcast once a week as well as pretty much daily uploads talking about news in the video game industry, focusing a lot on Xbox. Now, last week I started talking about beer, basically just I drink beer. I love sitting down, playing games, having a beer. So I'm going to be drinking a beer on every single show. And this week we have one of my favorite beers, and it is Innis & Gunn, which I believe is a Scottish beer. Yeah, crafted in Scotland. They have a lot of different flavors that I do like. This is just the original. And what makes this one, I think, stand out compared to a lot of other beers is that they keep it in bourbon barrels, and it has like a bourbon and whiskey flavor to the beer as well. And whiskey is the other drink that I like to have occasionally. So that's why this is one of my favorite beers out there, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have not. There's also one in a white can, which is kind of hard to get. It has more of a whiskey flavor. This one's more of a bourbon flavor, and the whiskey flavor in the white can, I think, is really, really good. I just can't find it all the time. It's not in every single beer store and liquor store around where I am, so it's hard to get into. But like I started last week, let me know some suggestions of beers. There were some great suggestions in last week's episode. The only problem is a lot of the beers, obviously, you can't get everywhere in the world, but definitely still keep those suggestions flowing if I'm ever run into them, if I ever see them, because I do get some imported beers in my beer stores around here, so I may be able to check them out. Let me know what you guys are drinking, and just, like I said, any suggestions on some beers to drink. So with that out of the way, let's jump in here to the very first topic on this week's Plumecast, and I'm going to go over firstly just a bunch of the rumors that have been swirling around the internet, been swirling around the Xbox community, because this week has been absolutely crazy with rumors. I know I say that every week, but this week in particular I think has been one of the craziest when it comes to rumors, and as we move closer to E3, those rumors are going to continue to come, and there's going to be more and more coming out. So let's jump in here to the very first one. And that one being, well, I got to get it up here for you guys to be able to see, is the Mandalorian. A game is potentially in the works. A Mandalorian game could potentially be in the works, and it could potentially be a Xbox exclusive. Now, this one is hilarious because it all started again with Phil's shelf behind him. We've seen his shelf start a lot of rumors with Kojima, with the Nintendo Switch, and other stuff as well. It originally started with the Xbox Series S, which was hidden in his shelf, and ever since people realized that an Xbox Series S was hidden in his shelf and it was there way before they even announced the Xbox Series S, people are continuously looking for clues as to what is going to be coming in the future when it comes to Xbox. So this is the latest one. It was interesting because what actually was revealed was not actually on his shelf, I don't believe. But basically, Special Ed, as we know, I talk about him a lot because he's the one that leaks a lot of stuff, it seems like. But he put out a tweet saying that you'll notice there's a Mandalorian Funko on Phil's shelf. Yes, someone is making a Mandalorian game, and not sure who yet, sorry. And obviously he's referencing Phil Spencer, who was talking at the Games Beat Summit, and there was a Funko Pop on the shelf behind him, and it looked like a Mandalorian, but apparently it wasn't a Mandalorian. It was the Arbiter Funko, which if you look up the Arbiter Funko online and then you zoom into the picture, it does kind of look like the Arbiter. But the fact that he tweeted this out revealed that he had some information that a Mandalorian game is being made, and is specifically being made for Xbox. And he kind of he kind of clarifies that going further after putting out some more tweets and saying, by the way, the Funko was in last Phil's shelf pick. I personally never noticed it the first time, but once I saw it this time, I asked if I could mention the game and he got the okay. Then continues on to say here, yeah, there's going to be a Mando game, but that's apparently not a Mando Funko. I might have just said something I wasn't supposed to yet. And then continues to clarify that, hey, he has a source that there's a Mandalorian game being made, and he asked them if he could reveal this because the Mandalorian Funko was on Phil's shelf. Got the go ahead, so he did, which is showing that there is a Mandalorian game potentially being made for Xbox, and it could be an exclusive, it could be a Game Pass exclusive, who knows what it will be, but it is something that is really exciting because Mandalorian as a franchise right now, today, in the current era of Star Wars, I think is probably the most popular franchise and IP that they have, just with how popular the show is on Disney Plus. And when watching that show, I think I'm not alone in this, that a lot of people probably thought that, hey, The Mandalorian would make an incredible video game if they have the right developer, if they do right by the show and release a game that's like a third person action, potentially open world, where you're just kind of flying around as the Mandalorian and taking out enemies and doing all this kind of crazy stuff, and maybe have Baby Yoda with you as well. And it would be super cool to see. So the fact that a game is in the works, I don't think is that surprising, but the fact that it could be potentially an Xbox exclusive that's surprising if that is what comes out of all of these rumors. And he's not the first person to really be talking about this. In a video I made this week talking about this rumor, Maddie from the Defining Duke podcast, in that series of podcasts, the one where he's on with Carrick ACG, he says that he had some information basically that there is an unknown IP that is being worked on at Xbox, and it's a Lucasfilm IP, and that Xbox is trying to counter Spider-Man and Disney that's available on PlayStation with being the console that has Lucasfilm IP. So we're already seeing Indiana Jones that's going to be coming out from Bethesda, which is a Lucasfilm IP, and I believe that's going to be an exclusive game to Xbox. A lot of people believe that because that deal was signed before the finalization of the Xbox and Bethesda deal, that it's going to be multi-platform. I don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, when that deal was signed, nothing was announced to the public. Nobody knows about it. And it would be really easy if Xbox wanted to make that game exclusive. They could, because nobody knows about it. I think one of the biggest things with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, why Xbox kept those games out on other platforms, is because the games were probably deep in development. So it would have been pretty bad to just tell these teams they can just, all that time they took to optimize games on PlayStation is going to go to waste. And it was out in the public, and it would look really bad from a PR perspective with the image that Xbox is trying to create as being that consumer-friendly brand that allows people to play games wherever they want to play. And then to come out and take those games that were announced as timed exclusives for PlayStation away would look really, really bad. But with Indiana Jones, I don't think they have to worry about that. There's no negative PR because nobody's going to know whether these games are going to be multi-platform or not. The game is very early in development, I'd assume, so there isn't going to be a bunch of wasted time and resources on other platforms, which is going to piss off Bethesda and piss off people within their own organization. So I think they can go ahead and release this as an exclusive Xbox game available on Game Pass. And then with The Mandalorian, if they have a good relationship with these Lucasfilm IPs, with the people at Disney, and they want to continue to create games, if Indiana Jones does well, then maybe we're going to see more Lucasfilm IPs coming over to Xbox, launching into Xbox Game Pass. It's exciting. I hope it happens, whether it's multi-platform or whether it's exclusive. I don't really care. Just the fact that we could potentially be getting a Mandalorian game is very, very exciting news. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. And here's the picture, if you guys are watching on YouTube, I just pulled it up now, but the Mandalorian guy was back here, who apparently is the Arbiter. So there's that. Now, the next rumor, which is a little bit more far-fetched, the exclusivity part of it, and it is that there was this picture that was leaked on 4chan. So again, it's on 4chan. Whenever something's on 4chan, you really need to take that with a grain of salt, because nobody really knows the source of it. But it's a picture of Elden Ring, and it's saying worldwide reveal 6/14/21, meaning that they may have a gameplay trailer that comes out on June 14th, 2021, which would coincide with E3 week. And we know Bandai Namco is coming to E3. We know Xbox is coming to E3. Oh, and yeah, just to add to that, in the picture at the bottom, there's just the logo of Xbox. But to be fair, there is a large empty black space between where it says From Software and EldenRingGame.com, which could have easily been photoshopped. So somebody could have easily taken the PlayStation logo out of there or whatever. But the fact that it only has an Xbox logo on this picture is getting people to speculate that Elden Ring maybe have some sort of deal with Xbox. Now, we know Elden Ring was revealed at an Xbox event, so they do have some sort of marketing partnership with them, I'd assume. We know that it could potentially come out into Game Pass if they have a marketing deal and Xbox pays them to put it into Game Pass. That could happen, but I really do not believe this game is going to be exclusive to the Xbox platform, especially with just From Software, their relationship with PlayStation, with games like Bloodborne, and the audience that is on PlayStation who play these types of games. I would be shocked to no end if this was an exclusive to Xbox. But you know what? When you start connecting the dots and you think about, they revealed it at an Xbox show, they're probably going to show it off again if they have a marketing deal with Xbox branding, and maybe Xbox shows it off at their show at E3. I wouldn't be surprised if they launch this game into Game Pass, and that would be massive. Whether it's exclusive or not is irrelevant. The fact that if they were able to get this into Game Pass, one of probably the most hyped games in the last couple of years, would be a crazy win for Xbox. And I would love to see it, because I'll be completely honest with you. When it comes to Souls type games, when it comes to, what was that game? Demon Souls on PlayStation 5. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'm not the best at those games. I don't love those games like some people do. I will definitely try them out and check it out, but they aren't games that I'm going to go crazy for and want to run out and spend $100 on in order to play. So Elden Ring, it fits along those lines, which it's a From Software game, so I'm assuming it is. I would love for that just to go into Game Pass, and then I can check it out, download it, and maybe fall deeply in love with this game, and it may be one of those first Souls style games that I really, really love. The only game I would say personally, which you could consider a Souls type game, but I think it's a joke to people who play Souls type games on like the hardest difficulty or whatever it is Jedi Fallen Order. I absolutely loved that game, and it has Souls style combat, and I beat that game on its hardest difficulty. But I have to say, although some parts were very tough, I didn't find it that hard to beat on the hardest difficulty. So I feel like somebody who is good at Souls games would find the hardest difficulty of Jedi Fallen Order the easiest difficulty of a Souls game. So that's probably not a good measuring stick, but Jedi Fallen Order is a game that is similar in vein, I'm thinking, to like combat and everything, to a Souls type game that I really, really loved. And that may also just be because I love Star Wars. So there is that as well. But yeah, take this rumor with a large grain of salt because of that 4chan link in, and I mean, I'm sure it'll come out on PlayStation, but I would love to see it come to Game Pass on day one. And to add to this as well, Bandai Namco and Xbox seem to be building a great relationship when it comes to games that are out on Game Pass. So I just saw this. I was just searching around on Facebook, and it's a video that Bandai Namco themselves put out, and they're advertising all of their content that is available on Xbox Game Pass, which I didn't realize there was this many games on there. So they may want to just continue that relationship and just add Elden Ring on there. They may, well, they know, they see the success and the stats and the analytics and all that kind of stuff when it comes to their video games and Xbox Game Pass. So if their games are doing well and they are getting more people to buy them on top of play them in Xbox Game Pass, they're getting more users overall, and maybe if they have microtransactions in some of these games, they're making money off that. They may want to continue that by putting more of their content into Xbox Game Pass. And another game that potentially could be coming to Xbox Game Pass from Bandai Namco, this is kind of another rumor, but it all kind of relates because it's all coming from the same publisher, is the upcoming Tales of Arise game. And again, Special Ed leaked this, or hinted to this, put this tweet out, and basically it's a Famitsu article saying Tales of Arise to launch on September 9th on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. And Special Ed quote tweeted that and says here, "I wonder what else it might be launching on." Now that could mean many things, right? That could mean maybe because all this tweet says is PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, maybe he means Xbox One, PS4, PC, Nintendo Switch, who knows, right? But the fact that he does the Xbox Era podcast and he's an Xbox media guy, you think he would be referring to Xbox Game Pass. So that'd be really cool. And there's already a Tales game on Xbox Game Pass, so I wouldn't be shocked if this happens. I think this would be a great move by Xbox to get the newest Tales game out on Xbox Game Pass. Just again, this is going to be a game that audiences around the world love in the Asian countries and in Japan when they want to get their hands on Game Pass. Tales will be a game probably that is popular over there. So I think along those lines, they are thinking that it would be a great game to add in there, and a game I will definitely check out if it does come to Xbox Game Pass on day one. And that just, again, shows the further strengthening, like I said, of that relationship between Xbox and Bandai Namco. So we'll leave it at that. Take it all for what you will, but hey, it's exciting times with Bandai and Xbox, and also actually I just thought of this right now, Scarlet Nexus as well is coming out this year, and I believe that has a marketing deal with Xbox. When they're showing it off, they were showing it at the Xbox show. I could be wrong, let me know if I am or not, but I believe Xbox is like the flagship marketing console that they're using to show off Scarlet Nexus, which, by the way, that game looks awesome, and I can't wait for that game to come out to be able to play it. So it's just all, when we hear about Elden Ring and stuff like that, because it's being published by Bandai, I wouldn't be surprised. But let's move on here to the next rumor. And this is one that is, you could take probably with a less grain of salt because it seems very likely and very true. And it is that IO Interactive may be working with Xbox on an exclusive fantasy RPG codenamed Project Dragon. Now, when this article came out, I think the first thing people thought about, and a lot of Xbox people want and said, was Scalebound, which, as we know, was a Platinum's developed game, a game being developed by Platinum Games that was supposed to be an Xbox exclusive for the Xbox One, which, when they showed it off, blew a lot of people away, including myself. A game that, when they canceled it, I was just so disappointed in that. One of the biggest disappointments for me in the last generation, and I would absolutely love to see them revive that game. However, I do not believe this is where it's going to be happening, and I don't know if Scalebound will ever be revived. I think the likelihood of Scalebound ever being revived is probably under like 5% from all of the reactions that I've been seeing on social media and just stuff that I've been reading. And so I don't think it's going to happen. So if you're out there thinking that this is Scalebound, I would just kind of get that out of your head. It's not Scalebound. And we're seeing people like Jez here, Jez Corden from Windows Central, confirming pretty much it's not scale bound by putting out the Simpsons picture of Bart writing on the chalkboard multiple times saying, no, it's not scale bound. And then in the comments, people are just like reaffirming that it is not scale bound. So get that out of your head. But it is still interesting that IO, the makers of Hitman 3, just came out with critical acclaim, is going to be working on an exclusive Xbox game. So again, another game we're going to have to wait a couple years for, but it really just shows you what's in the pipeline at Xbox and how when these exclusives start dropping, they're going to be dropping fast and they're going to be all coming into Xbox Game Pass, and it's going to be just a wild time. And further to that rumor, this was something that Jeff Grubb wrote. I believe this is Discord of some sort. But he writes here that IO Interactive's Xbox Dragon themed exclusive will be third-person Diablo-style game, according to Jeff Grubb. And what he writes is, since Windows Central posted about it, I can say what I know. It's going to be behind the back Diablo-style game. So there you go. Right there. Probably should have read this part first. He may not be right. I mean, I'm not saying he's 100% right, but from what he knows, it's going to be a Diablo style game. So if that's something that interests you, definitely keep your eye out on it. Again, it's just more third-party partnership content that Xbox is reaching out to get, which we just didn't see in the Xbox One generation. And it's just nice to see them doing it now to really give the content that the Xbox community wants, and for a community that has continued to stand by Xbox even after the debacle of the Xbox One. There's a lot to be excited about. And it's just the beginning. Like, we are May? I'm recording this. So it's May 2nd. Xbox came out in November, and all of this stuff is just starting to come out. So those are the big rumors that really set this week on fire, I would say. And we are 1 month and a week or so away from E3. And as this month goes on, I think it's going to continue to be crazy. We're going to continue to see more rumors come out almost every week. The amount of stuff I'm going to be able to talk about is going to be endless, and I'm just really excited about that. This is always the most exciting time in the video game industry, that lead up to E3, waiting for those big announcements. And this E3, out of all of the E3s in recent memory, I think I'm the most excited for, and I think people who are Xbox fans should be the most excited for, because Xbox knows they have to do a lot this E3, and I really do think they will deliver. So let's move on to another rumor, but it's not with exclusivity or games that haven't been announced or partnerships or anything like that. It has to do with potentially 50 plus more FPS boost games that will be announced and will be coming relatively soon, I'm assuming. And this rumor comes from Tom Warren. And Tom Warren at The Verge put out a fleet. So I mean, I'm sure we all know what fleets are. I don't really use them that much, but basically it's like the Snapchat style thing of Twitter. And he puts in his fleet on the top right corner, it says, and now bottom right. It's just like in small, for those, if you're just listening on Spotify or whatever, it's just like small print. Then you scroll down to the bottom. Okay, I should start with this. Right in the middle, he has a big blue banner and it says look top right. You look top right, it has small print that says and now bottom right. You look bottom right, and an even smaller print, it says 60 FPS / 120 FPS 50 plus, which makes people believe that 50 plus FPS boost games are on their way. And we just got another big drop of FPS boost games, like all of those EA FPS boost games that just came out last week. So they're going hard on pushing more FPS boost games, which I'm all for. I mean, if you play a backwards compatible game that has FPS boost, has auto HDR, and then you go back and play its original version, that the version with the boost is like playing a brand new game. It's an awesome feature. And this backwards compatibility support from a hardware level that Xbox has done with the Xbox Series X and S, to me, by far one of the best features to ever come out on any console ever. Like it's what makes the Xbox Series X and S for me probably going to be my favorite console of all time because of the support that they're doing for that backwards compatibility. And I just think it's awesome because I love playing older games. Like, yeah, I love talking about the Series X and S. I love talking about the new content. I love playing all of the new games that come out, but I've been playing video games since the Super Nintendo era, and I still love going back and just reliving some nostalgia and playing older games that I either haven't got to or that I love, because there are so many great games from older generations that people who are new into gaming will have never played. And I think that giving people the option and the ability to have that chance to play some of those older games that, hey, they've never checked out before is just such a great thing. Now, Special Ed again, add it with some, this is his wish list. So actually, let me read this quickly. So he says, so the alleged list, okay, so it's the alleged list of FPS boosted games coming is supposed to be big. Surely my wish list games make it in. And his wish list is Recore, Crackdown 3, Sunset Overdrive, Forza Horizon 3, Rise, Son of Rome, Dead Rising 3. Not sure if 360 games are part of the plan, but it would be nice. So I guess, I don't know if this is, he has information or if this is literally just his wish list, but hey, there's a list of games he would like to see. And there are people going about this, talking about what games they would like to see. And I think that there are so many games that they could add to this. 50 games is a lot, and I think a lot of people's wish list games are going to be knocked off on that list. But what's even cooler about all of this is that if they're able to put out batches of games like they've been doing with their last 2 releases with all of those EA games, I forget how many there were, but there were quite a few, and now they're going to be able to put out a batch of 50 plus. Some people are even saying it's like 70 games all at once with this FPS boost. It really means that they are perfecting the process of getting these games approved and making them work with the FPS boost, meaning that we could see a lot more games coming down the line. And that's very, very exciting. So with the theme here of people putting their wish lists of FPS boost games that they would like to see come from this lot, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what games you want on your wish list for the next batch of the FPS boost games. And with that being said, that's the end of rumors / partnerships / all of the crazy stuff that has been coming out this week. And we're going to move on to something here which I think is really exciting. I think a lot of people are going to be happy to hear about, and it is about Stalker 2. So there's 2 things. The first one is Stalker 2 would be impossible to run on the Xbox One, says the developer. Now, Stalker 2 is a game, I've never played the first Stalker, so I'll be honest, I don't know that much about it, but it's a game that I'm excited from watching the trailers and just like people talking about it, the atmosphere, the kind of horror, scary side of it. I'm excited so I'm excited to check out when it eventually does release, and it is supposed to be coming out in 2021. And it looks absolutely stunning. It's a game I think a lot of people in general are excited for and ready to see. When they at the ID at Xbox, when they had the Stalker 2 part of it, they just showed off like the graphical features of like the guns and the materials and all that kind of stuff. And I have to say, it was one of my favorite parts of that ID at Xbox, just how amazing that stuff looked. And I was streaming that live, and I think for the majority of people, it was one of their favorite parts too. So it's a game where there's a lot of hype. And they had an interview here. So they had an interview with Gaming Bolt. And they were asked about the game and how it can run and how it runs on the Xbox Series X and S and all that kind of stuff. And the response was, Stalker 2 is a next-gen game. It is impossible to run on the Xbox One or PS4. So if you are expecting a game that is going to show off what the Xbox Series X and S, but particularly the X can do, I think Stalker 2 is going to be that game in 2021 that you wait for and that will blow you away graphically from everything that we've seen and from what they are saying. And it's encouraging because it means they're working on this game from the ground up for these next gen consoles. And We know the developer kits were sent out late, so developers have had, at least with the early versions of games and the early releases of games on the Xbox Series X and S, have had a bit of trouble, and they've talked about it, how they haven't had time to fully get the most out of those development kits, how they're still learning them, how there's still tools that are trying to mature for the kits, still tools coming out, as we saw at the GameStack Live with like Fidelity FX tools that are finally being available to develop for the Xbox Series X and S. With Stalker 2, if this comes out in the fall, they're going to have almost a year plus with those developer kits, and hopefully with that amount of time, they're really going to be able to pull that full power of the Xbox Series X and put it into Stalker 2. So that's really exciting. It's a game that's built from the ground up for the Xbox Series X. So if you're somebody who's been sitting there waiting for that game that looks incredible and really shows off what it can do, Stalker 2 could be it. Now, the Medium was a game also that was built solely for the next-gen consoles, and people were waiting for that game to really show off the power of the X. And I think that the Medium did a great job with how it looked graphically. People are going to have complaints about it being in 30 FPS and all that kind of stuff, and it makes sense why it's in 30 FPS, but people are still going to complain. Basically, they have that dual reality where they had to render two scenes at once, which is hard, right, on the GPUs and all that kind of stuff, which makes the game in 30 FPS. And on top of that, it is a very slow game. The frame rate for a game like that isn't that important. It's just, that's the truth. I prefer 60 FPS, but for a game like the Medium, where it's essentially walking around and doing puzzles, 30 FPS is more than adequate for a game like that. And it looked really good, especially with that dual reality stuff. I thought that was one of the coolest features and unique features I've seen in a video game in a very long time. However, I don't think Bloober had the time, like Stalker, like these guys here. What is the development name called again? GSC, forget. Yeah, GSC Game World. I don't think they've had the time like GSC Game World has had to be able to optimize the game to the best of its ability. So I'm excited for this game. And if you are somebody who is on PlayStation 5, don't hold your breath. I don't think this game is coming to PlayStation 5. They even confirmed it in that interview. And they say here, no plans for now with regards to Stalker 2 and PlayStation 5 release. We negotiated the possibilities with Microsoft and saw several good opportunities for the brand, including Game Pass. And that is an important quote, because I don't think GSC is the only developer that sees the opportunities that Game Pass provides. Now, yes, of course, Microsoft has big bags of money, so they see the opportunities of the bags of money they're going to receive, but at the same time, they probably see the statistics and the success of Xbox Game Pass, these subscribers going up, and the instant access to 23, probably going to be around 30. I'm guessing by the time Halo releases and everything, million subscribers that are going to have access to the game right away. And that is something for a developer I think is hard to ignore, and I think a lot more developers are going to be going along these lines that Stalker 2 is going. And I mean, we've already seen that with all the third-party games that are coming out on the service. So that is interesting. If you're on PS5, Stalker 2 is not going to be coming to PS5, at least in the near future. So Stalker 2, keep your eyes out for that. Game looks awesome. I really hope they show this game off at E3. I think they will, because the game is still planned to release in 2021. I think this game is going to come out in 2021, so I think there will be some sort of gameplay trailer of Stalker 2 at E3, which again just continues to build that hype for this conference. Okay, so Stalker 2, with that out of the way, moving on to the next topic here. If you are somebody who likes the numbers and the sales and the revenue and all that kind of stuff when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, today was a very interesting week for you, because I don't know if this is something that always happens, but the Q3 earnings for Xbox and PlayStation literally came out one day after the other. So we got a direct comparison between Xbox and PlayStation and how they are both doing. And there's a lot of numbers. I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff, but the gist of it all, although I recommend listening just because, hey, why not? The gist of it all is Xbox and PlayStation are both doing very, very well. They've both been breaking records. PlayStation has more revenue. So that's at the end of it. If you're just looking at who's making more money, who made more revenue, PlayStation made more revenue, but both companies, their gaming divisions are doing incredibly well. So firstly, this is from a blog called workingcasual.com. I'll have a link in the description below. I believe it's just a single blogger. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I'll link it below because it's a really good breakdown of everything. And firstly, starting off here with the actual revenues. So both companies reported their highest ever revenue from their respective gaming divisions. PlayStation achieved $24 billion for the first time ever, and Microsoft achieved, for the first time ever, revenue in 12 months. They have achieved $15 billion for the first time ever. So PlayStation has made about $9 billion more in revenue than Xbox has. And those two numbers alone is interesting because PlayStation had such a large lead on Xbox, I think, when it comes in terms of revenue, that now they're only 9 billion behind. That gap is closing. You can see what Xbox is doing. You can see the strategy that they're taking is really working for their own revenues, and that gap is closing a lot faster than I thought it was actually going to close. Now, we'll start off here by focusing on the Sony side of things. So they reported nearly a 9 trillion in yen in consolidated revenue, which equates to roughly 82.8 billion, which overall is a 9% increase since 2019. And 15%, so the yearly operating income rose 15% to 972 billion yen, or just under 9 billion. And this was driven by PlayStation mainly, and their electronics products and solutions, and in addition to that, their music segments. Now, when it comes to their PlayStation division specifically, their total sales reached 2.66 trillion yen, which is roughly $24.44 billion, which is up 34% since last year. And it is a record result for this unit during a full year. I mean, when you think about it, the PlayStation 4 was coming to an end. That console was starting to die off. The PlayStation 5 came out. PlayStation 5 has broken their sales record over the PS4 in the amount of time that it's been out. So it is not surprising that they're doing very well with that. And then their operating income jumped 44% to 3.15 billion. And they say here, this is the first time this particular business moved past 3 billion in annual profit, marking yet another record high. So PlayStation division at Sony is thriving. They're doing very well with the PlayStation 5. That console is going to continue to sell well, and it's going to probably sell well throughout its entire generation. So in terms of the lifetime shipments of PlayStation 5, after 2 quarters, they are at 7.8 million, which surpasses, like I said, the 7.6 million of the PS4 back in their fiscal 2013. And what they say here is interesting as well, because they have had supply issues with chips. And I mean, the chip shortage in every single industry has been crazy, and it's been really affecting video game consoles. And they say here, supply has not been able to keep up with extremely strong demand for PlayStation 5, although constraints on the supply of components, especially semiconductors, is expected to continue this fiscal year. So if you're out there thinking you're getting a PS5 anytime soon, you're going to have to be really, really like hawk-like on whenever stock comes up, because the amount of stock that we have right now with these next-gen consoles is probably going to continue for a while now. And I was completely wrong on that. I thought that we had a shortage right when they first released, and I thought by June, July, that the PlayStation 5 and the Series X were going to be readily available to pick up in stores. And I could not be more wrong. I don't think anybody could have predicted what's going on with the chip shortages, so I'll give myself a break there. But if you want one of these new next gen consoles over the next however long, you're really going to have to be keeping an eye out on whenever stock comes up online, and just be ready to get onto it right away. And then we continue on here with more interesting information, and it says here that digital software and add-on content are both up 44%, while hardware jumped 39% in 2020. And I think that hardware jump, like the big jump there, is because of the PlayStation 5. I mean, the 7.8 million, which is going to really push that hardware. And then the digital side of things is not surprising. I mean, physical is dying out slowly but surely. Soon we're going to be all digital when it comes to video games. And numbers like this are going to continue to push that forward. When companies see that their digital software is up 44%, I mean, the likelihood that they're going to continue with physical games in the future is becoming less and less. So when it comes to full game software unit sales, 339 million were during fiscal 2020, up from 276 million in 2019. And then when it comes to their first party titles published by Sony, it contributed 58.4 million compared to 49.2 million last year. So I'm thinking that 58.4 million probably has a lot to do with games like Demon Souls, Spider-Man. Spider-Man we know was out on the PlayStation 4 as well. So there's that, which sold like crazy. And then it implies that nearly 2 out of every 3 games purchased for its platforms are now downloads. And then there you go again. Downloads are the future. Now, this next stat here is very interesting. And I think it talks to something that I've thought about. And this is in no way like trying to fuel console wars or trying to hate on PlayStation. But the next stat here I'm going to mention is that Sony's PlayStation Plus service rose 15% to 47.6 million, but their monthly active users across all PlayStation networks dipped. So it is now at 109 million compared to 114 million a year prior. But they also mentioned still the rise in PlayStation Plus paid memberships is a more significant contributor to the gaming segment, pushing network service sales up 14% year over year. The big thing here that I've mentioned, and it's always a direct kind of talking point between Xbox and PlayStation. It's what games are there to play. People always say Xbox has no games because of the exclusives. We know Xbox has a ton of games now. We know all the first party content is going to be dropping and it's going to be endless games on Xbox. We know PlayStation is known for their first party exclusives, and that's what people love to prop up so much. What's interesting about this stat is their actual active users on the PlayStation Network has dipped, even though they are breaking records for the launch of their console, surpassing the PlayStation 4 with the PS5 sales. And there's so many PS4s out there. What that number tells me is that since the launch of the PS5, there hasn't been that much games to play. People buy PlayStations to literally play just the exclusives. A lot of people just to play the exclusives, and that's it. So when you see lull periods like we've seen, I guess it's kind of been broken now with the release of Returnal. I wonder if those numbers have changed because of that. But we saw Demon Souls and we saw Spider-Man come out at the launch of the PlayStation 5. And since then, there has been, if you're one of these people who buy PlayStation to just play exclusives, there's been nothing to play. You bought your PS5, you played it for a month, and then it's been sitting there ever since. Like that's just the truth of the PS5 right now. Not that that's bad, not that there aren't going to be tons of games coming out in the future. There will be, but right now at launch, by far the better console is the Xbox Series X. It just is. Like there's so much more to play. They don't have the first party exclusives, but when you have Game Pass and you have constant content drops on there, you always have something to play with the third party stuff, with their updates to games, with the FPS boost, all that kind of stuff. You always have something to play. So I'm not surprised at this number, but I think it really does prove the point that in the first months of the PS5, there hasn't been that much content. And it also proves the point, I think, that people buy PlayStations mainly, or not mainly, but a lot of people buy PlayStations for that first party content. And if there isn't that first party content, they don't touch the PS5. So that was interesting because their numbers rose in terms of subscribers, probably because it's that influx of people buying PS5s and the influx of people picking up Miles Morales and picking up Demon's Souls, wanting to play that. But then after they play those games, they haven't touched their console until maybe now with Returnal. So that number may have increased. So that's pretty interesting overall. But yeah, overall, I would say the PlayStation division and Sony with the PS5 is doing very, very well. Which pushes further that point. People love to hate on Jim Ryan, and I don't really like Jim Ryan. I don't think he's like in touch with what gamers want as much as Phil Spencer, or like not even close, to be honest, in touch with what gamers want compared to Phil Spencer. But he's a very good businessman. He knows what's selling, he knows what's working, and he ignores all of the noise, and he's going to continue to do what he does with PlayStation strategy, which is put out first party games, lock people into the console to play those first party games, and the PlayStation 5 is going to continue to sell like crazy. And he's going to focus on their big hitters from Naughty Dog and Insomniac. I hope they focus more on Insomniac, because I know people love Naughty Dog so much, but in my opinion, Insomniac is by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the best developer at Sony. They make the best games. I don't care what anyone says. Insomniac makes the best games at Sony. Now, moving on here to Xbox. I talked about the Xbox stuff in one of my videos throughout the week, but Xbox had an incredible fiscal as well. So we look down into their gaming revenue alone. Their total revenue is $3.53 billion during January to March. And that's first time a third fiscal quarter recorded over $3 billion in sales. And it's a huge increase of 50%, which is just insane. And then Xbox content and services grew 34% due to the strength across the board in third-party titles and Xbox Game Pass subscriptions and first-party software. And we continuously are seeing Xbox Game Pass subscribers increase. That's going to continue. Like, it's going at a rate that's insane. By the time Halo Infinite comes out, subscribers, I'm predicting, are going to be like 30 million. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it will be around there just with how crazy it is. And here's a quote from Satya Nadella. He says, "People are turning to Xbox more than ever to play and chat with friends, and we saw record engagement this quarter led by strength on and off console. With Game Pass, we are redefining how games are distributed, played, and viewed. Just last week, we added cloud gaming via the browser, expanding our reach across PC and mobile." And that's a great point. I've been using the browser xCloud beta, whatever you want to call it, and it works well, it runs well, and at the end of the day, I think that is going to be such a huge boost to the Xbox ecosystem, because you literally don't need to have any expensive hardware to be able to access Xbox Game Pass games. You just got to boot up xbox.com/play, log in, boom, you're into Xbox Game Pass, and it works well. And then accessing all of the people on Apple is a massive thing, with more than 50% of the users in North America being Apple iOS users. So that's just going to open up the amount of people that can subscribe and want to subscribe and use Game Pass to just endless numbers of people. And then they continue and they mention this, like I've said, it's going to be really hard to get these consoles, but demand for Xbox Series X and S has vastly outstripped supply, the latter of which seems to be more significantly constrained than even the PS5. So it seems like the Series X and S is having more constraint issues with their supply than the PlayStation 5, which is going to, it's going to lead to less actual physical hardware sales. But again, it doesn't matter to Xbox as much. It's the end of the world for PlayStation if this chip shortage significantly hinders their supply of the PS5, and if they can't sell as much hardware as they would like. With PlayStation, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, sure, they would love to sell more Xbox consoles, but the fact that their strategy is based on Game Pass and playing wherever you want to play greatly reduces that risk that the chip shortage is creating for all of these companies. When it comes to annual gaming revenue, it jumped 46% since the same time in 2020. Plus, it created a record. And for the first time ever, the yearly gaming sales of Microsoft crossed the 15 billion milestone. So there's more information here. I'll put the link in the description below. I highly recommend checking it out. But gaming as an industry is at an all-time high. It's thriving. It's in the golden ages right now. Like, I don't know how much higher it's going to go. I don't know if it can go any higher. This may be the golden age, and then we may be on a slight downturn. Well, we will have to wait and see. But if you're a gamer, like, this is by far the best time to be a gamer with the amount of content we're getting, with the success of video games, and two great consoles this generation. I mean, no matter where you play, you're going to get lots of great content. So we'll end that there, but I'll keep this description or this link, like I said, in the description below if you wanted to read into it further. And we will move on to the last topic this week. And this one may be a little bit shorter, but it is the Inside Infinite update for April 2021. And I just really wanted to just show off and talk about the ultra wide pictures that 343 sent out and just how amazing this game is going to look. It's almost making me want to go out right now, sell my monitors, and just buy one ultra wide display, because they put out an Inside Infinite and they're talking about really their support for PC, because this is the first Halo game that is going to be released day one across Xbox and PC. So it is a big undertaking for 343. We forget that. We forget, yeah, we were disappointed by the launch or the delay of Halo Infinite, but we also forget this is going to be the first time they're releasing this on multiple platforms. So there's more work that has to be done. And there was an inside... where is it here? There was an inside or an Xbox Wire article talking about continuing the PC journey with Xbox and Game Pass and everything, and how they are continuously supporting PC, adding more games, trying to get the Game Pass almost like very good on PC as well as on console, because that's the best way to say it. And they're talking about how Halo Infinite will support multiplayer, crossplay, and cross progression when it releases later this year. And this means if you're playing on PC, you can play with your friends on Xbox One and the Xbox Series X and S. And the multiplayer customization and progression will also follow across all platforms. And it was followed with this Inside Infinite where they were showing off screenshots of the difference between just the regular 16:9 versus how the game is going to look if you have an ultra wide display. And man, does it look good. Like, it blew me away. It is insane how good this game is going to look. And I can't wait to see more of it. Hopefully. I mean, I'm assuming they'll show it off at E3, but definitely go check out those pictures. It's beautiful. It looks like it's going to be an absolutely beautiful looking game. But what is the best thing I think out of all of this information that came out about continuing to support PC, the Halo Infinite cross progression, crossplay, the ultra wide stuff, and just more PC support in general, is the fact that Halo Infinite is going to be available day one on Game Pass, on Xbox, on PC. It's going to be available on Steam. So if you don't want to sign up for Game Pass, you want to just purchase the game, you're going to be able to get it on Steam. It's going to be available on mobile, and it's going to be available on xCloud. So through the browser integration on iOS, all that kind of stuff. Meaning that Halo Infinite, and it's free to play. Let's not forget that. It's free to play. You have to pay for the campaign, but the multiplayer is free to play. But Halo Infinite, when it launches, the community is going to be so damn big. It's going to be crazy, because you're going to have people that don't need to pay a dime. They're going to be able to jump into multiplayer, whether that's on console, PC, through the cloud or whatever. That you're going to have so many people to play with. You're going to have so many people to talk about the game with, so many people to share the game with. And it's going to be supported so greatly, because I think the community is going to be so massive. I just hope that they have their servers in line. But the Halo Infinite release, I think, is going to be one of the biggest game releases in Xbox history, just with the sheer amount of people that are going to be jumping onto this game. Now, there's also like the negative side of that with the free-to-play stuff. You're going to get a lot of bad actors who play, and trolls, and people who ruin the experience. So that's one thing I just hope they talk about and they continue to like add to and fix as this game goes on, is how are they going to make sure that the online community is kept in a place where you can go on and have fun, you can go on and have a competitive match, there's no cheating, there's no people who are exploiting the game to ruin it for others. Like, I hope that that doesn't happen, because that would ruin the online experience. And the likelihood or the risk of that happening is much larger with a free-to-play game. So that's my only concern, but I'm sure they have stuff in line. And that's why I hope at E3 they talk about it and they show off the multiplayer and they go into a deep dive into this game, because I truly believe this game is done pretty much, like they've said, just fixing bugs. And I think they will have a lot to show off at E3. But yeah, that is going to end it for the Plumecast this week, episode number 5. I know there was a lot of stuff to go over as usual. I mean, every week there's always a lot of stuff to go over, but if you guys enjoyed this episode, if you guys enjoy my content in general, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're new here, go check out the channel. I do daily uploads pretty much of news, shorter form videos, and then I do this podcast at the end of the week for somebody who just wants to, hey, just relax, put on a podcast and listen to some of the interesting stuff going on in the gaming world. But thank you guys all for stopping by. Again, thank you for all of the continued support. Check this podcast out, YouTube, Spotify, all those places. And yeah, again, thanks again. I will catch you next week on the next Plumecast or throughout the week in my daily videos. But everyone, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.